Today we are speaking with Ron Borczon, Professor Emeritus of Music from CSUN's Music Department, as well as the creator of CSUN's renowned music therapy program. Ron, thank you for coming in today.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Let me just start at the beginning. How did you first become interested in music therapy? When did this become like a big interest for you?
So I grew up in Erie, Pennsylvania, and I started my college career at Slippery Rock, north of Pittsburgh, as a psychology major, and wandered into the music department one day and saw this flyer about music therapy. And, this is 1973. And so I asked one of the teachers about it, and they said that they had a program in Pittsburgh and that perhaps we could do 2 years at Slippery Rock and 2 years at Pittsburgh. So, back then, there was really no literature on it. There was, of course, no internet at that time. But I felt like I was just drawn to it because I knew I'd be working with people through my music. My goal was to teach at the university level. And so when I saw the job come open for Northridge, I applied for it and I got the interview. This is 1984. And at that time, the music department was almost like a conservatory. It was very performance-oriented. And it was the goal of the chairman to have a music therapy program. So a lot of the faculty really weren't, like, why are we doing this?
They didn't have a lot of faith in it, or
they had no clue what it was. So part of my interview, which really isn't done anymore for interviews for music therapists, I had to perform on classical guitar. And luckily, I was a pretty good guitar player. A lot of the performance faculty saw that, music therapy really incorporates musicianship. And my first year here, I did a recital, and it also helped support the concept that I'm bringing to the table not only music therapy, but also a strong performance background. So that's how it all started in 1984 with the chairman was Clarence Wiggins, and he really wanted to have music therapy at the university before he retired.
So you interview with them, they're like, all right, he's the guy. Can you walk me through the process of how you, started the program? What were the steps on making this a reality?
So when I got here, there's an organization called the American Music Therapy Association. At that time, it was called the National Association for Music Therapy. And you had to get approval from this organization to actually offer the degree in music therapy. And so their national conference is in November. So I did all the legwork and paperwork and got it to them before November at the national conference. I went to the national conference and spoke with them, and they said, "You're approved."
Okay.
So we could actually offer music therapy. They had a lot of the music therapy classes on the books, even though the catalog really wasn't right about them. So there was a core structure of classes already there that I could work with, and then kind of restructure, manipulate them in order to make it a more cohesive program in my eyes. So that's really how it started. I remember my first class. I actually remember some of the people in my very first class. There was like 6 of them or 5. And of those 5, I think only one actually became a music therapist who I'm still in touch with today. Okay. But then it just gradually grew and grew and grew.
What were you thinking? Like when you start to see it to grow, was that kind of shocking to you, since it seemed like, oh, this is like a kind of a new field, at least for this school?
It wasn't so shocking to me, but I realized part of the curriculum is that you have to do field work under the auspices of music therapists. And as it grew, I had to find more music therapists in the LA area to supervise the students. And that was the hard part, is finding enough supervisors for the student growth. And word started getting around, Northridge has a music therapy program in the community colleges, high schools. And so we started getting a lot of interest. Probably within 3 or 4 years, we really started growing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the ears started perking. I was like, okay, wait a second.
Yeah,
Here's an opportunity here.
Yeah.
So so when you're restructuring or going through the classes, trying to make it a cohesive, I guess, pathway to become a music therapist, like what did those first classes look like where it was like, okay, this is where we're actually going to start teaching the fundamentals?
They were modeled after my education at Florida State.
Mm-hmm.
That's, and so I had all my notes and I talked to the teachers there. How should I do this? And I got a lot of guidance there. And, one of my favorite professors in psychology of music said, look, just do it exactly the way you learned it for at least 3 years and then modify it as to what you think needs to be modified. And so that's what I did. I took the classes and really taught them how I learned them. And then after that, started modifying them to be more in tune with what I wanted to do with the curriculum.
Mm-hmm. And what did some of those modifications look like?
Well, I wanted to get more experiential things happening in the class rather than just lecture time.
Right.
So labs, were created, and during the labs we would have music therapy experiences with the students so they can feel what it's like to do music therapy with each other, get music therapy with each other. That was one of the big ones. And then expanding the class, renaming them, changing the curriculum within the class. But really I really wanted to make it more experiential so that you just don't come out with knowledge without experience.
Right. It's not just, oh, I read this, a lot of book reading and a lot of, you want them to, go out into the field. And is that correct?
Yeah. And even my test questions were often worded in such a way that you're trying to figure out what the technique was to apply to a certain situation. So it's often, not just this is a definition of this. It's like, okay, the therapist is doing this for the client. Why do you think the therapist is doing this? And then coming up with the correct answer.
Mm-hmm. So, like phrasing the questions in ways where it's like, how can we utilize this for maybe a certain kind of condition? How can we use this for this kind of condition, that kind?
Yeah, it's more like, here's the condition. What do you do?
Right.
Right. And that comes from your knowledge of what you've read and what we discussed. And so you have to apply that knowledge into this scenario.
I imagine there's a variety of ways, different ways that can go, because of how many conditions, exist, and the different ways that you can use music therapy. Can you go into might be a very loaded question, but how can music therapy be used? How have you used it, and how do you teach your students to use it?
The basis, the fundamental idea of music therapy is not to create a musician. The fundamental concept is we're given a problem, right? And our job is to help alleviate that problem through a musical experience. Let's say you're working with a child who has a developmental delay. They're 7 or 8 years old and they don't know their numbers or colors. We will structure a musical experience to teach that to them rather than just saying, this is red, this is black. We'll teach it through song. We'll teach it through rhymes and things like that so that they learn it that way. So that's, whenever you say, oh, okay, how do you use it with geriatrics? How do you use it with so-and-so? It's like, well, what's the problem? And then I can tell you how music therapy would fit the problem.
Right. So when when it comes to the students, what are like some of the key things that they have to know, have to learn through as they go through the program?
One of the biggest things with students is their ability to be good musicians. They have to be able to play piano proficiently, guitar proficiently, ukulele proficiently, various types of electronic instruments, and be able to sing in tune. I mean, I can't tell you how many students might be a good guitarist, but they can't sing in tune. It's like, look, you're going to be singing in your job, and if that instrument is not working, either you have to get lessons or this may not be the right route, okay? So, in looking at students, that's one of the biggest tasks is first musicianship. Second is looking at the student. It's an intangible, right? In music, there's a thing called timbre, and timbre is a quality of the sound. And often when I teach how the aspects of music are really aspects of our human behavior, I talk about timbre in such a way is that when you hear two violinists playing the same piece, you may like one more than the other because of the timbre of the violin. And timbre relates to warm, cold, things like that. And so the timbre of the student is a sense of their presence when they're in front of you interviewing. Do you get that feeling that they are going to be a good helper, a good therapist? That's the intangible part, but you really have to, you do it for so long, it's like you kind of know.
You know what makes or breaks the deal.
Yeah. I mean, and a lot of students come in, they say, you ask them why they want to go into music therapy. They say, well, I had troubles when I was a teenager. Music helped me through it and things like that. And it's like, okay, good. You have an idea what music can do, but now are you ready to use that for someone else besides yourself,
Right. Because it's more than just listening to music and then, maybe getting an emotional response out of it, or, I listen to this music and then it makes me feel better. It's a lot more than that. Right?
Yeah. I often think of, throughout all the years of teaching, I would get people inquiring about music therapy, and they say, I do music therapy with so-and-so, which kids. And I say, well, do you have a degree in music therapy? Are you board certified? No, but I do music therapy. And I think that is like saying, you have a headache. And I say, hey, take these 2 aspirin.
Yeah.
I'm not practicing medicine.
Yeah.
It's just like, and I'm not calling myself a doctor. I'm just doing something. And so people that say they're music therapists that haven't gone through the training, they may be providing a nice feature for their clients, or a lot of times you find this in geriatric facilities. It might be nice to have them there, but they shouldn't be saying, I am doing music therapy.
Right. I'm a pro when it.
Yeah. You're pretty much probably entertaining more than anything.
I find that point interesting where you were talking about just the emphasis on creating experiences for the students so that they can actually learn. They can put their skills into practice. What kind of experiences do you encourage? What kind of experiences does the program encourage that students have?
So they're required to do 4 fieldwork experiences in their junior and senior year. And in those experiences, you have to have 20 hours of client contact time. You learn how to write notes. You learn about assessments and things like that. And so we have different offerings with different music therapists for the students to choose from. And so they choose from certain things. One semester they might be working in a hospital with children. Another semester they might be working in teens with alcohol and drug addiction. Another semester they might be working with children with developmental delay. So there's always these experiences every semester that's helping them get ready for their internship, which is at the end of their program, which is 6 months full-time. And usually not paid.
Oh, wow.
So it can be pretty difficult. I mean, there are approved internships all throughout the country. I've had students I've got a student now, one of my students that I had, who's in New York, at Beth Israel in New York. I've had students in Florida. I've had students in Cleveland. So it's wherever there's an approved AMTA internship that they can apply to. There's quite a few in Southern California.
Yeah. Do most students try to like get the ones in Southern California, just location wise?
I'd say most of them do. Those that don't are often trying for difficult internships to get, because there's so many. There's not. They're like premium internships that they only take 1 or 2 students from the country, and fortunately, I think all of my students that applied for these really hard to get internships have gotten them. Like the one that's right now in New York, that's a sought after internship. They only take 2 people. They probably had 20 applicants.
Wow.
So
pretty prestigious, very,
Well, they know our quality. They know the quality of our students. They also know me. I know all these people. And that's, I say, look, you got to take this person. They take them,
Yeah, I mean, this music therapy program, it's pretty well known across the nation. It's pretty, I want to say best value schools have rated it quite high. What is you think the biggest contributing factors to that?
Job placement, I think. After you get out, they find out how many are getting jobs, how many are graduating, things like that.
What kind of jobs do they end up getting right
Well,
after?
a lot of them get hired by their internship site.
Oh, okay.
A lot of them get hired by the internship site. Recently, I say in the past 5 or 6 years, a lot of them are going into private practice. And I have one student that has opened up her own facility in Thousand Oaks. She employs 4 music therapists, and they go all over Ventura County. So a lot of them go into private practice where they go in homes, or like this particular graduate has her own, like in a strip mall, she has her own space where they do music therapy. I have a number of students in state facilities right now, state hospitals, and in Norwalk Metropolitan and Patton State Hospital. And I actually have one graduate that I'm back in touch with. He was one of the early graduates, and he worked his way up in the state system to be a supervisor with a bachelor's of music therapy. I have another grad who's worked his way up, and he's a supervisor administrator in the Cal Vet system.
Veterans. Right?
Yeah, the California Veterans System. And so they're doing all kinds of things. Working with kids and then supervising other therapists, and so it's really a wide variety of job opportunities for our graduates.